I'd like to welcome everyone on Sancta Familia tonight and whatever time you're watching to a new feature during this strangest of times. It's called Life Under Lockdown, and I intend to speak to many different Catholics across the United Kingdom, maybe even further afield, to see about their experiences of spirituality and how they are coping with life under lockdown. So we're joined today by James Bundy, who's a Scot in exile in London, and he is a featured commentator on BBC 9 on BBC Scotland, and also writes for the Scottish Catholic Observer from time to time. So, hi James, thanks for coming along tonight.
Oh, no worries at all. Very nice speaking to you.
So how are things in London, and how are you coping through this pandemic?
Well, I managed to escape London before lockdown, so I'm actually back in Scotland,
There you go.
which is
I've got
very
the wrong
convenient.
accent already.
Yes, my room in Scotland's much bigger than in London, so I was quite fortunate to get out just in time and being able to spend time with the family. So that's always a plus.
Good. And how do you think, as someone who's a Catholic and a Catholic of faith, how do you think your faith has helped you through this process of dealing with the coronavirus?
Well, it's been tremendously helpful. The daily readings in particular, that has basically got me through the day, that and the Rosary. Without those, I think I would be panicking a lot more and feeling a lot more lonely.
Yeah, it's interesting you do say that. Obviously, I've had a very unique time with this virus. I've got very, very bad problems with anxiety, which I've kept to myself. But I've revealed that more publicly with the Facebook followers and how I've been coping with that by contacting the doctor and things. But in the background as well, there's definitely been, as you say, this great attachment to the Rosary at this time. I'll put my hands up and say I've always known the Rosary is a great prayer. I've always said the Rosary, but I've never said it as frequently as I have done. And that's just out of laziness. But I think now I've been doing it daily, and I've been doing it for the last 6 weeks, maybe I would say now, daily, and I found a significant improvement in my prayer life. One of the reasons, actually, you might not know. Do you know the story of Joe from Carfin?
I do, yes.
Yeah.
I've been following the Facebook page.
Yes, that's Joe there.
Yeah.
So, I've got a great devotion to him. I know his family, and they're great people, friends. But reading his diary over the last year, his story has kind of brought out, I've let down my guard and spoke more about my anxiety and my problems as well, but that sort of thing. And reading his diary, what screams at you is how much he loved the Rosary, how much it helped him in every scenario. And he talked to his parents and how much he turned to it. So I was reading his diary recently, if you get comfort of his words. And I thought, well, you know what, I'm going to try, and we'll try a family Rosary together. See what, he advised it. Let's see what happens. And the fruits have been evident. And one of those fruits as well has been this ability to accept help. Don't know what your thoughts are on that, because like, as someone who's of religious faith, sometimes I felt a bit uncomfortable that having anxiety wasn't a great witness. Do you know what I'm saying by that?
No, yes, it's certainly something that people have asked me. How does the Catholic faith deal with mental health? In particular, if you believe there's a God, why do you feel anxious? And it is a legitimate question, but I think that there's many answers to it. It's very easy to get caught up with the earthly realms and earthly temptations, and basically earthly concerns, and there's a separation between the heavenly and the earthly. So when that separation occurs, anxiety can creep in, as well as many other forms of mental health, such as depression.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also, I was reaching out to some people during that time, and before I sought medical advice from the GP, and some people I speak to are priests, and one priest in particular, a Carmelite priest in America, was one of the most encouraging to go down the medical route, because he was quite clear that, our Lord, when he was carrying his cross, got help carrying his cross from St. Simon of Cyrene. So for me, that helped me open my mind a bit more to the fact that this is not a question of faith, because I do have great faith and great trust in the Lord, but this is a chemical thing in your brain. It's OCD. It's a condition. So I think that's quite important to separate that out, that you can be a person of faith and you can have anxiety, but certainly the faith, if you focus on it, which I have been doing more recently, and the reality of what we're going to be celebrating on Sunday, the resurrection, then you think, why are we really afraid of anything? So why are we afraid of ultimately death? Well, we shouldn't be, because death has been conquered, will be conquered, because the Lord has risen.
Yes, you're entirely right there. But the miracle of Easter, which it is a miracle, it sometimes escapes our mind, and it's sadly very easy for it to escape our mind. And the joy of Easter just round the corner, is very timely to current events, and when death appears to be in the news more often than it was previously. That yes, we do have a natural fear kicking in. It's a human instinct coming into play. But ultimately, we know that death has been conquered by Jesus. And that should give us much hope and much encouragement that lockdown, as inconvenient as it is, it's not the end of the world. There's a better kingdom to come um, after this life on earth. So yes, that's certainly comforting, and knowing that we're going through the Triduum as of just now. We're technically into Good Friday as it stands, so we're at the start of the most important period in the Church's calendar, and it goes from a great low to the highest of highs. And
exactly. Yeah, it's. I mean, going from someone who's experienced death in the family, with my aunt passing away a few weeks ago from coronavirus, and being a bit older and suffering from dementia, that hope of the resurrection, that hope of eternal life, is something which inspires you. And I couldn't quite escape the great feeling of peace I had for her, and happiness, which is strange to say. I was happy that she had died, because she had a wish. She escaped that cruel disease, and is now at peace with her Lord. So yeah, that was interesting. But what I'm noticing in general, being an online Catholic and online social media, I don't know if you notice this as well, is that we're seeing a great turn back towards the way of faith. I'm noticing a lot more people who weren't maybe as practicing or as vocal about their faith, reaching out and expressing their faith through prayer or through seeking us, direct messages and things. So what would you say about that as well?
oh yes, I agree with that. I think it was epitomised by the Sun newspaper's front page, I think on Wednesday, which was about the Prime Minister, and it was, he stayed at home to work for you, now pray for him. And I was thinking to myself, when was the last time prayer was on the front page of a national newspaper in the United Kingdom?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because obviously you hear a lot of politicians say they're thinking of people, and
Yeah.
I personally hate that expression, because thinking, okay, nice sentiment, but it doesn't do anything. What does it do?
Oh, yes, and a lot of politicians have been saying my thoughts and prayers are with the Prime Minister and with a Labour MP who's also in hospital with the coronavirus. But yeah, the fact that a national newspaper, even the Sun, which we all know had the famous page 3, and so to go from page 3 to calling for prayer is quite a turnaround.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I think that is what the Lord does. He works through the greatest dark trials of our lives and brings forth His light. I think we're seeing a blessed time, and that might be a strange way of putting it, but I've come through a mental health crisis. I've come through bereavement. I've vastly improved night and day from several weeks ago, to start to appreciate the everyday, by having that routine, by watching morning mass, albeit we can't go in person, but you're watching it online, you're praying the Rosary, you're talking to your parents, having household tasks, reaching out to people. I think that routine is almost monastic in a sense. I feel a bit like I'm glamping in a sense in a monastery. I've got a bit more plusher than a monastery, but it feels a bit monastic. Certainly, I don't know if your beard is a monastic beard like mine, but I'm growing one and cultivating one during this period of isolation. So,
yeah, I don't know if it's a monastic beard, but it's certainly a beard that's growing because of lockdown. But I think you're onto a point there. It's definitely about the the West, and as somebody who lives in London usually, the speed of life is so fast that you're basically looking at your diary and you're like, where can I fit church in? Whereas in time of lockdown, it is church is the centre of the day and everything falls around it. And that is comforting. And the speed of life is much slower, and it is a bit of a shock to get used to at first. But there's much more time for spiritual reading. So I've been much more disciplined in my Bible reading and reading the saints and some of the popes as well. So that's been very fulfilling. I've also been studying different liturgies. So the New Rite, Old Rite, but also Byzantine, Ukrainian. So I was like, I can go to these masses and learn.
Slava Boże.
Yeah. Oh, so learn.
But it's also giving me cause to reflect on what we place our values on as in a Western society as well. Recent years, we've seen the number of people and families decline as people prioritise career over family. And I think now, more than any other time, we're seeing the value of families. We're in a sort of risk category. I've got asthma, my parents are older, and have other underlying health conditions, so we're certainly not going to the shops as much. And our wider family, our cousins who are healthy, are helping us out, and it's grateful we have them. So I think that's a wake-up call to the West. Maybe we should be thinking of bigger families are beautiful, bringing that back again. And it's definitely this could be a reset moment in how we view our whole structure of life.
Oh yes, I certainly agree. I actually spoke about this on the BBC not that long ago. We were talking about housing and speaking to neighbours, and I sadly had to admit that I hadn't spoken to my neighbours in London at all. But thankfully that wasn't the case in Scotland. And certainly the past couple of weeks, our neighbours have come together to help the more vulnerable people on our street, and it is wonderful that that is happening. It's sad that it had to take a pandemic for it to occur, but it's reassuring that communities are looking out for each other. And even tonight, at the end of the mass that I attended, I heard people clapping outside my window. And even that, a small gesture of a round of applause for carers. It's a wonderful sign of togetherness, that we're in this together. And yeah, even that is a clapping and a round of applause is like a secular way of coming together. But the Mass and prayer and the readings of the Gospel, that's a religious way to come together. And when you're watching the priest deliver the miracle of the Eucharist on the altar, we are brothers and sisters in Christ, and what brings us together is that miracle. And that is also reassuring and extremely comforting, that you might be alone in your house or with your parents or with your sister and brother, but you are within this greater family that Jesus called for in the Sermon of the Mount. He redefined the family from the Jewish tradition into meaning the whole church was your family. And that new family, the church, defended the traditional family as the strongest defense of the traditional family today, with the new family in the church. So having the two interlink with each other, that we're together with the traditional family and we're seeking comfort in the new family, the church, which is based in the Eucharist. Yes, it's an incredible, wonderful thing that we have.
And what do you hope that once this crisis does eventually pass, whenever it does, what do you hope to see different in the church and the way the church operates?
I think it's very easy. The church can fall into two bits quite easily, and the ideal bit is in the centre. So you can have those who are legalistic, who think it's a set of rules, and if you follow the rules, that's it. Then you've got the other side of that coin, which is it's a community spirit, and as long as there's a community feel, then that's church. And I'm like, well, both of you are correct in a way. but you're not correct, either of you. And it's a combination, but at the heart of it is Jesus. And if the church and the followers can become closer to Jesus through this pandemic, then that's a good thing. If we can have a much more personal relationship with Jesus, then yeah, that's what we're called for. And the Sermon on the Mount and the Ten Commandments, those are expectations that we have in the kingdom, and we have to try and do on earth as it is in heaven.
Yeah.
So there is not a legalistic side. We do have things to do and things to avoid, but it's much more than that. And we have to bring our brothers and sisters into Christ. We have to love our enemy as well as love our neighbour, and we have to ultimately love God and love Jesus. And yes, weeks without receiving the Eucharist, it is driving me insane.
I feel your pain.
Yes, and particularly tonight on Holy Thursday, when it is the institution of the Eucharist, the institution of the priesthood, the institution of the Mass, and I'm in my house. Like, I want to go to church. I want to see the priests renew their vows. I want to have my feet washed. I want to partake in the agony of the garden by adoration. And not having that, I feel the pain. And it should basically waken us up about whilst we receive the sacraments, they might not be an immediate feel-good factor, but when they're God, it impacts us. And it should draw us back to the sacraments.
Yeah, that's my kind of hope that we're going to see renewed fervour because we've been deprived of it now for nearly a month. I'm just hoping that when we do return to Mass, we won't treat it as casually as maybe we have been doing. Certainly, I've always been aware of receiving communion and the worthiness of receiving communion. That's something that's very close to my heart, and the way we receive it as well. I always think, we should be focusing on communion on the tongue. We should be focusing on communion on our knees, because our body language expresses the reality of what we are receiving. And I think for far too long, as a church over the last 50 years, for example, we have maybe downplayed the true presence of our Lord in the Eucharist. And by doing so, we've totally undermined what it means to come to Mass and what it means to receive it. So I'm hoping that will be the great renewal, and it will come from a renewed reverence of our Lord in the Blessed Sacrament.
Oh, yes, and when I was at school, I was taught to receive by hand, pick up, and place on your tongue. And at that time, you're still developing what are we actually receiving. And then I went to St. Andrew's, and then I saw somebody kneeling to receive communion. And it was the first time I ever saw it. I was like, what are they doing? So I went up and spoke to them, and they explained why they did it. And from that moment, something in my heart was like, you've got to do it, you've got to do it. And I denied myself, and I felt like Peter denying the Lord. But like Peter, I felt the regret and started to kneel.
Yeah, I've got a kind of similar story in a sense as well. I never took communion in my hand. I couldn't really do that. I just felt uncomfortable with that. But I was going to benediction and seeing everyone genuflecting to knees, the reverence, all facing towards the Eucharist. And I just thought, we're having this is benediction is a sort of throwback to the ancient form, the way the Latin Mass was, ad orientem, everyone facing the same way with the reverence and the gestures. And I thought, then look at the mismatch here. You're going to benediction, then you're going to Mass on a Sunday, and it's almost completely casual compared. And then if I went to Latin Mass after the Corpus Summorum Pontificum and discovered the riches in the Latin Mass, it also helped my experience at the Novus Ordo Mass as well, which was, understood it better, understood where it came from, understood why the changes took place, understood why people wanted those changes. But it also made me realise that when we're kneeling at Latin Mass, it's the correct posture. and so I carry that push into the regular Sunday Mass as well, and I think that's really helped me increase my devotion to receiving the Lord in Eucharist. So that's something that not for everyone, because some people can't kneel down, but certainly if you can do it, I recommend when we get back to normal times that might be something we should maybe try and do more to show reverence with our bodies.
Oh yes, and I tend to go to the old rite when I can. I'm very lucky in London that I can get the old rite every day if I want to go. But the 11 a.m. at the London Oratory is new rite, but it's celebrated ad orientem, and it's I would call it very high. It's Gregorian chant, in the sense everything about it, that unless you have an eye for the liturgy, you think it's the old rite until you hear the second reading. And this is so beautiful. And I just say that because I know there's a lot of division between old rite, new rite.
And there shouldn't be. Yes, this
No,
is
they shouldn't
what I
be.
find so frustrating. People take pot shots at us for our page for the accusers of being right wing. I don't know why. The accusers of being backward in terms of attachment to the traditional form, which is common amongst young people, this attraction. But we are living out fully our Catholic faith as Sancta, Familia, Media, because we attend both forms and we respect both forms because the Lord is present in both forms. And I think that's the key. I think there shouldn't be this divide, as you mentioned there, between both forms of Mass. I'm hoping that maybe when we get out of this crisis, we'll have less of that division, which we saw in the church. We saw almost open warfare amongst rival factions online, hoping that this pandemic maybe will unite the church back together again, because we are only one church, and there is only one church.
Yes, well, if it's good enough for Jesus, it's good enough for me. And that should be the mindset that we have going into either rite of the Mass.
Or any rite, of course, because it's not either or. I like to remind people that you've got various rites of the Catholic Church.
Yes, no, I've been going to them. Every Tuesday night in London, there's a Ukrainian rite Mass. And it was eye-opening when I went. I'd never been to a Ukrainian rite before. And I sat, I think, the 10th row back, just to try and hope that people would sit in front of me. Sadly not. Apparently people like sitting at the back in the Ukrainian rite. And I was lost, but I was like, I can try and pretend I know what I'm doing or just admire what's in front of me. And it was beautiful. I just was like, I'll take part, and when I know I'm doing right, if I don't have a clue, which is most of the time, I'll just sit and have adoration with our Lord. And yes, it was beautiful, and how they receive as well, in the way that the body and blood you receive at the same time. It's very powerful.
There's definitely nothing to be lost or nothing to fear from looking at other rites and embracing other rites in a spirit of unity. That's something which I think is key. So thanks for dropping by, James, to talk to me. Obviously you're not dropping by, but thanks for dropping in rather to chat tonight. We're touching on a variety of things. I hope people who are watching it will find it useful in some ways. And as always, I always like to repeat that if you do have struggles and you do have issues you want to talk about during this lockdown, I'm here to talk. You know, James certainly helped me when I reached out to him, and he was giving me some spiritual, comfort as well, which was good. So thank you for that, James, as well. Because anxiety in this time affects everyone. So I hope everyone keeps well, and hope you too, James, keep safe as well.
Yes, I think the advice that I gave you was a prayer from Aquinas.
Mm-hmm,
so I think it may be appropriate to end if I read it, because I've got it in front of me.
Yeah, go for it.
So it's called For Ordering a Life Wisely. So it's available online if you just give it a quick Google. So, For Ordering a Life Wisely. O merciful God, grant that I may desire ardently, search prudently, recognize truly, and bring to perfect completion whatever is pleasing to you, for the praise and glory of your name. Put my life in good order, O my God, Grant that I may know what you require me to do. Bestow upon me the power to accomplish your will, as is necessary and fitting for the salvation of my soul. Grant to me, O Lord my God, that I may not falter in times of prosperity or adversity, so that I may not be exalted in the former, nor dejected in the latter. May I not rejoice in anything unless it leads me to you. May I not be saddened by anything unless it turns me from you. May I desire to please no one, nor fear to displease anyone but you. May all transitory things, O Lord, be worthless to me, and may all things eternal be ever cherished by me. May any joy without you be burdensome for me, and may I not desire anything else besides you. May all work, O Lord, delight me when done for your sake, and may all repose not centered in you be ever wearisome for me. Grant unto me, my God, that I may direct my heart to you, and that in my failures I may ever feel remorse for my sins and never lose the resolve to change. O Lord my God, make me submissive without protest, pure without discouragement, chaste without regret, patient without complaint, humble without posturing, cheerful without frivolity, mature without gloom, and quick-witted without flippancy. O Lord my God, let me fear you without losing hope, be truthful without guile, do good works without presumption, rebuke my neighbour without haughtiness and without hypocrisy, strengthen him by word and example. Give to me, O Lord God, a watchful heart, which no capricious thought can lure away from you. Give to me a noble heart, which no unworthy desire can debase. Give to me a resolute heart, which no evil intention can divert. Give to me a stalwart heart, which no tribulation can overcome. Give to me a temperate heart, which no violent passion can enslave. Give to me, O Lord my God, understanding of you, diligence in seeking you, wisdom in finding you, discourse ever pleasing to you, perseverance in waiting for you, and confidence in finally embracing you. Grant that with your hardships I may be burdened in reparation here, that your benefits I may use in gratitude upon the way, that in your joys I may delight by glorifying you in the kingdom of heaven. You who live and reign, God, world without end. Amen.
Amen. Well, thank you very much. That was really, really good. And it's something I'd recommend everyone watching maybe say daily. Comfort.
Yes, Aquinas said it daily, which brings me great comfort when I'm saying it. I'm saying a prayer of such a great thinker.
Bonus question, where's he buried?
Oh, that's a good question. I should know. I don't know.
He's buried
Just
in
tell me.
Toulouse.
Toulouse, of course. I should have known that.
Thank you, James, for joining us tonight, and keep well, keep safe, and you and your family.
Yeah, same with yourself. Have a blessed Easter when it comes.
You too. God bless.